this is somewhat recent, but it's been going on for a while. So the SAG-AFTRA, which is they represent the voice actors. I guess there's a voice actors guild. I didn't know that. I knew there was actors guild, but they're the voice actors guild. So they've been trying to been negotiating all this year with the major, AAA studios like EA, Ubisoft, Disney, about having some new agreement put in place for voice actors.
Mm-hmm.
So amongst those requests that they're trying to get, and there's a divide when you threaten a strike, there's going to be a divide, and that's what they're doing. The voice actors are threatening to strike, the ones that are in SAG. So they want stunt pay, in quotes, for vocally stressful performances. I guess if you have to yell a lot, could damage your vocal cords. They also want to have stunt coordinators available when motion capture or movement is involved in the recording. I'm guessing if they mean, I'm not familiar with that in terms of voice actors also doing like rolling around, or
yes.
if they mean just
so
like
I can fill that in a little bit.
Fill that in a little bit for
because I think it'll shade my opinion. So a lot of times now, voice actors, especially if they're voice acting a role for a video game, they will also do the mocap work.
So they'll run with a gun in their hand?
Because you're doing the voice acting, and what better way to do your acting than to act out what you're doing?
Sure.
So they also get so sometimes for some games, they're in the mocap suit, they're the ones who are doing, the walking, the running, the rolling around, that sort of thing. I mean, and that's to give their voice acting believability and weight, essentially.
So they want quarters on hand. I guess if there's something dangerous done. I'm not too familiar with what's been done. If people are rappelling down green screen walls, I don't know. Then the biggest one, and this is the one that probably is why you're probably going to have a strike, is that they want back-end residuals for games that make at least $2 million. They want back-end residuals to kick in, and then once they reach 4, they want it to scale up to more residuals, and then once it reaches 6 million in sales, they want it to reach more. So that's going to be the sticking point here, and I'm not sure where this is going to go. So we're in a weird stage now then, because by doing this, what the voice actors are saying, you cannot have, basically what they're saying is you cannot have games be as successful without us participating. That's what they're saying. This is sticky, and I'll be totally honest. I'm totally on their side when it comes to having a stunt coordinator. If it has to be dangerous, that makes sense to me. For quote-unquote hazard pay, if your voice goes out, that to me, I could go either way on that, because if it's part of the job description that you have to yell a lot, that's some sort of risk involved with that, and of course they're going to have to hire someone else. Like anything, if you can't do it, if your voice goes, you have to hire someone else, and maybe there's insurance involved. That I don't know. Maybe that's part of the reason why they're in the union. Maybe they would pay for that. In terms of the residuals, I got a problem with that. I'm not going to mince words about it. I have a big problem with them demanding residuals. The amount of work they're putting into these projects, some are more significant than others, but these are not making or breaking these games. They are not. Them being in here. They are not programming, they're not designing, they're not doing the art on this, they are not doing the QA on this. They are to me the icing on the cake of these games. Not to say that they're worthless, not saying that at all, but whoever they would have got to voice Solid Snake and Metal Gear Solid 5, you didn't need Kiefer Sutherland, you could have got anyone else to do it and it would have sold the same amount. So I just hope they're not biting off more than they can chew, because you know what? They can have scabs come in very easily and do work that'll be just as good, probably, because a lot of the times you hear about voice acting being really bad in games. Now, that's not always on the voice actor. That could be on the bad scripts that are being written, which again
could also be bad based on bad pacing. I think. I mean, I'm gonna let you finish, but before I just want to say that more often than not, when I think voice acting is awful in a game, it's not the voice actor, it's the pacing of when the sound cues come in, and that's on the programming.
Yeah, and to me, that's not, and that has nothing to do with me putting value on the work or not. I'm just saying it is what it is, and that they're not making or breaking these game sales. They're not actors making or breaking a movie. That's totally different, because in a movie, the acting is a good, I'd say 2/3 of the movie is the acting. You have the directing, you have the acting, and the writing. In a game, they are a minute part of that experience. Even with all the cutscenes in games and all the stories in games. No one's going out and buying the next Call of Duty because their favorite voice actor's in it. That's my point. So I would love to see the details of how much they're demanding. If it's a minute amount where it's like, okay, we want like I don't even know what's fair, what's built in their contract. We get 0.1% of the sales or something so minute that here's a little flavoring. Like when you appear as an extra in a movie. That's the best way I would do an analogy. They're like an extra in a movie. They can get a residual if they're in the union, but it's a very, very small amount. They're not going to be getting paid 5% or 10% like a movie actor who's a big movie actor like Robert Downey Jr. He can negotiate. Okay, next Avengers movie, I want 4% of the profit, and they'll say, okay, we have to because without you, no one will see this, or a lot less people do.
Well, I mean, this is how I feel about it. As far as the stunt coordinator and whatnot during anything that's involving mocap that they feel like is dangerous, I'm 100% on board with. As far as the damage, the potential damages, I'm like you. I'm kind of half and half. I understand it. It's like, I mean, you look at, not to sound silly, but it's like you look at a hand model, right? If they no, but I'm serious.
George Costanza.
They ruin their hand. They lose their ability to make a living off of what they're doing. Voice actors make their money off of their voices, and if they damage their voice doing something, I do believe that there at least should be some sort of compensation period while they figure out what they're going to do.
But you know what? A hand model can get their hands insured. The same way models get their legs insured.
No, I realize this.
And so, like, you can do that. You can go to MetLife or whatever, and get insurance for all that.
Well, if a voice actor can get their voice insured, then that's a whole different thing.
I wish I knew more about the union and what their union fees entailed. Like,
sure.
if it entailed some sort of hazard pay built in or something, I have no idea.
As far as the back end deal thing, I'm gonna have to disagree with you a little bit. While I agree with you that no one is rushing out to buy a game because their favorite voice actor is in it, I do not think they are icing on the cake, and I do not think they are a bit part. I do not think anyone at this point can imagine video games without voice. And as time goes on, there are voice actors who get more well-known, and there are voice actors who people identify as a character, especially if it's a long-running series. I don't think it's unreasonable because my understanding is that voice actors do not make much. So if a character is... Because Kiefer Sutherland has not always played Snake. I can't remember the guy who did.
They love the guy that came before him. I don't remember his name, but he did it up to this point.
Was it John? I don't know if it was... No, I don't think it was John St. John. But either way...
He was a comic book. He was the guy in the comic books.
But
Hader.
Sure.
David Hader.
Yes, that's right. So, honestly, this is a guy who embodies the character of a game that people love. And if a game does particularly well, I don't think there's anything wrong with him making extra money based on the sales, as long as what they are requesting is reasonable. But the problem is we don't have any sort of details as to what they're asking. So I can't, because if they're asking too much, I'm going to say that's unreasonable. But if they're not asking for a ton, I got to admit, I don't think there's any problem with them receiving additional pay at various benchmarks.
But this is what I'm going to say, though. If that actor is so big, like a David Hayter, which apparently wasn't since he's not on Metal Gear Solid 5, they didn't need him anymore.
No, it's because Konami didn't give a fuck.
My point is, then, if you're that integral part, and if you don't think that they can sell them without you, you know what? Negotiate it with your agent to say, I want these residuals. And you can't make that part of it.
I'm wondering if this whole bid for residuals is coming about because they don't get a higher pay rate, and it's a stopgap until they find a way to get paid more or treated as a more integral part. Because like I said, you may think that they are icing on the cake, but we cannot go back to silent video games.
No, but my point is that you don't need a unionized voice actors guild in order to get competent voice actors to do this work. You just don't.
I don't know.
You don't know? You don't think there are people who do competent voice acting? That's like, you know how hard it is to get into SAG if you're an actor? There's plenty of good actors. So they can get scabs in a second.
There are people out there who are not part of any union right now who are doing great voice actor work, but I don't know. I don't really have an issue with any of this. It really depends to me on the finer details.
But I'm going to come back to the fact that it just bothers me that if they're going to do this, then that programmer who worked on the game for hundreds of hours that year is getting no residuals versus someone that worked on the game for 5 hours and they demand back pay for that. That bothers me. I'm sorry, that just bothers me on a primitive sort of level.
Yeah, but from what I understand, there are oftentimes like bonuses associated with sales points reached for people who worked on the game. So,
right.
so I mean, if that's the case,
I want to see what this is. Then I want to see what this is. If they make $4 million, they throw 5,000 at someone or 10,000. I'd be like, all right. But if they want like hundreds of thousands of dollars,
no,
I'm gonna be like, okay, that's.
I highly doubt that's it. Look, I'll meet you halfway on this. This is what I would say. If programmers and artists can receive bonuses for sales goals met, then so should the voice actors who worked on the game. If they are not capable of getting those bonuses, then the voice actors should probably take a look at their role in the game and deal with the fact that maybe they don't deserve those bonuses. But I think it's a matter of play fairly and play equal, and I'm not saying the bonus has to be the same for the voice actors. It can be a fraction of what a programmer made, but if there are bonuses involved for sales goals met for anyone who worked on the game, then it should only be fair for everyone to be included in that.
Okay, I could sort of go in that direction, but at this point, I'm not going to get too much into it, but doing a hashtag performance matters and trying to do that's just weird to me. Your voice acting. I'm not trying to belittle what you're doing, but your voice acting.